Hi, welcome back to another episode of Not Another Tooling podcast with myself, Austin Pearson, and my wonderful co-host, Mr. Matt Malcolm. How are you doing, Matt?
I'm grand, messing with my lighting. I try and blind myself at the same time.
Well, and I can't believe you're wearing a shirt. It's the UK. The weather is absolutely roasting.
Yeah, but I've got shorts on.
I'm not sure our listeners wanted to say that, but thanks. Thanks for sharing. Today, we are talking about the 5 common mistakes that people make with ITSM tools. Now, we could probably list hundreds of these, but we're going to focus on the top 5 today. So if you've got an ITSM tool, I hope you have. It's not a spreadsheet, or you're thinking of investing in one, this is going to be loads and loads of goodness in this podcast for you. So we'll start off with number 1, enablement of users. Matt, take us away.
So it's all about the people. There is definitely scenarios where the people that ultimately are responsible to do stuff with it, admin staff, or consume it, business users, not aware of the product at any stage, and then it appears this thing in the estate they're going to do stuff with. So the enablement of the people is all facets of the people that are either doing the technical bits and bobs or ready to consume it, but getting them involved at the first stage. Because what we would generally find is, and even with good user engagement for the process, there might be requirements missed if you've got to the point of doing requirements, right? Sometimes that happens about golf course sales, but sometimes they're not, and sometimes they're requirement based. But the people being involved in that process at the very beginning is super important, because you don't do that, by the time you get to this stage, and sometimes operational stage, oh, Mr. Business don't even know what product I'm going to buy a new product for this purpose. But actually, if I would have been involved in this process, that feature, that widget, that function could have been included. It will shape the right answer, and also maximize the potential usage of the product when it does become live. So yeah, people enablement from the get-go.
Yeah, absolutely. Because even at end user stage, you've got so many people that will just assume it's another service desk and won't know the functionality. And now there's some pretty cool stuff like AI built in that they could use to solve their own problems, rather than just doing the thing they've always done of just create a ticket and waiting for somebody to call them back, which if they don't know about that stuff, which they're not likely to, then you're not going to get the value out of it that you need.
Pretty much so.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I think this is something that is missing on pretty much every tool. I'd say ITSM is definitely an important one, though, because there's so many different facets to it, potentially. And if people who are using that tool, whether they're using it in an end user capacity or whether they own a process in there, or whatever it is, they all need to know the things that tool could do to make their life easier.
And when I'm talking like that engagement and enablement at the beginning, like this isn't just some fluffy kissing face to go, we had a meeting engagement, we send out communications. No. The right kind of people physically involved in that process, whether you're engaging with the vendor themselves and you're having the demos or the rest of it, or you're doing some hands-on trial of the product, get these people touching and feeling the product all the way through. And then what you're kind of hoping to find there is, well, the sales pitch is this, my technical hat, because I know the product space, is this. But the end users, that's awful experience. But actually that other vendor was actually quite, let's try those guys. And you're trying to appease everyone, which will never really be, you never be able to do it fully. But having everybody involved and all the physical aspects of that stage, maybe not to deploy it afterwards, maybe not necessary, but the people who are going to consume it, so valuable, because you catch all of those naysayers and people who are going to get pissed off with you way before you even committed.
Yeah, I agree. And I think also engaging with your vendor in that conversation as well, like what do they do for you in that space? If you find you've got a a user group who are just not engaged, how can they help? What do they run? Regular user experience surveys and clinics, ops clinics, whatever it is. Is their training limited? Is it online? Can everybody in the company go and jump on it if they need to? And all that sort of stuff is definitely some questions you should ask. Of your existing tool, right?
Yeah.
There's probably loads you could get out of that, let alone when you're selecting another one. Wonderful. Okay, so number 2 then is keeping it simple. There's loads of other ways we were discussing we could talk about this particular point, but this point is absolutely, there are so many modules that you could buy and implement and use. But do you really need them all? What do you need to be successful on day one? How do you just get the things you need to get the benefits that you discussed when you involved in all your stakeholders, as Matt described a minute ago, and what you really need? Yeah, thoughts, Matt?
No, that is it. It's look, the market space is rife, right? The big players and mid players are strong as well now. And there's so many features and functionality. Like, you can go to these fairs, as I was at a few weeks ago, and there's so much good stuff. But be real with yourselves. Are you an organization that can jump into this plethora of features available and get to work on them? Maybe not. Probably more not than maybe. You'll have certain requirements you need to double down on, the basic stuff and the whatever stuff. But focus on that stuff versus getting lost in the dreams of all the other features and functionality that are nice to have, and maybe Frank likes them, but you're never really going to get to use it. So you end up trying to do a feature comparison or something against other products, and you go, that one's got the most. We'll pay a bit more for that because it's got extra. But then you're never going to use it in the first place, and it just dazzles you. You never get to use it. And we see that, seeing this now in the market, very, very comprehensive products where customers haven't had the ability to use a large proportion of the functionality, versus what they could have done is dumb down their requirements, focus on the core stuff and do it well, and they would have saved a lot of time, pain and money. Then when they need to extend, it's a more requirements driven activity. Absolutely, we need it, versus we've got all these features and functionality that we're not using. So the focusing on something simple will actually be the most valuable versus getting lost with the Chinese menu of features available, which is never really good. Here's a scenario. You don't walk into a, this is a bad analogy, by the way, Jesus Christ. It's hot. You don't walk into a Chinese and go, wow, nice menu. Have it all, please. You go there, you go, wow, I like that. Mrs. needs that. I'll have that. And you come up with a selection of things that are relevant right there and then. If you want more of the other thing, you might go back next time and get something else. Maybe it changes, but you don't go there and go, I'll have the full menu, please. And I think that's how some of the purchases of some ITSM products is going, where there's a large menu, they go, we'll have it all, please. And they're too full, they can't eat it all. And they have a bit of that, bit of that, bit of that, and they end up with a mess. Not the best analogy, but bear with me.
It's just making me hungry, that analogy.
Yeah, right. I said a banana, not quite right.
No, I think you're absolutely spot on. It's good. Okay, so number 3 then is total cost of ownership. This is a really good one, I think, because you really need to understand, and it's a tough one to do, what your total cost of ownership of your ITSM tool is going to be over the life cycle of that tool. And that is likely to be, a minimum of 5 years, but realistically, you don't want to change your ITSM tool for as long as you possibly can, right? So yes, you've got an upfront license cost, but what else should people be considering in that TCO equation for ITSM?
Yeah, and there's very obvious stuff, isn't there? So one other thing that I think gets missed, and this is generally the fault of the complexity of the product, is the technical staff skills requirements that are needed to support it, to needed to turn that widget on, to needed to extend it, to develop it, to support it. Like the more traditional sense, you used to have, like, back in my day, there'd be like 1 or 2 people that would be responsible at all, end to end. They're both the change person that does the process and the dev that does the work, but now there's a plethora of resource around. So what you want to be looking at is your overall life cycle, how you manage products in the estates. Well, okay, if I need 3 people to manage this product, well, this one's going to be a bit more complex. Maybe there's more. So there's all of the fluffy roles, if it can't be absorbed in the existing product stack, product tooling team, or whatever it might be. But then the depth of the product, or is it just going to be a single techie person, a dev, and an admin? Do I need an architect as well? Do I need some junior developers? Can I do an apprentice scheme? So it's all of the nuts and bolts of the people side of things that needs to be considered, as well as the core product cost, because the product costs are more black and white. You can see that. You can pretty much forecast it. Although some things will probably bite you in the ass because you like that feature and you don't realize it's a new costed feature until it's too late. So product costs, organizational costs. I've got like another one as well, which is a bit elusive, but I'll pause to hear what you got to say.
No, I agree. And I was going to add in the costs of getting the most out of that platform, which is typically working with either the vendor or a third party to help you drive value as this is a journey as it is with any tool, and you can always do more and always do more. And but that typically comes at a cost. And you want to make sure that you don't scrimp on professional services or consultancy over time, and hand in hand with that, training your people to get the most out of it, and basic things like upgrade costs. I know things are pretty much SaaS these days, but even so, there's often some things that are involved in upgrading that take some cost with them. So you want to add all of that into the bundle over time.
I just want to come back to a point there around like the third party bit, an MSP, the vendors for the consultancy or whatever else. It's not a negative thing to have to rely on a third party, an MSP, a consultancy, whatever else to do the work, but it needs to be considered because, and I've used this analogy way too much. Here's one more time. Organizations is buying that Rolls Royce, and this could be a mid-market Rolls Royce as well as the more lofty one. They're buying the Rolls Royce, and then they are not willing to spend the 400, 500 quid a tyre when it's due for its servicing. So they're left with this great thing, and they can't really do anything with it. It just sits on the drive because they can't put new tyres on. And it's a shame to see because the products are so good. There's nothing wrong with the products. The products do exactly what they said they would have done. What wasn't considered is the premium fuel to put in it, the £500 tyres, the, I don't know, £200 an hour service costs or whatever. I have no idea what it would. I haven't got a Rolls Royce, but that bit there, nothing wrong with it, but it's got to be considered. If the organization's got to go down this premium route, or even not so premium route, got to be thinking about all those extra things in order to essentially live up to the advert of that product. That product, when it's advertised, it can do all these things. It can do, it absolutely can do. Why wouldn't it? It's not a lie.
Yep.
But you got to think about all the other bits that are going to get to that point. And if you want that view, if you're expecting that thing to come back, bolt on, and it would be great if there was a calculator just to throw it all in, but it would be impossible. Bolt on those extra running costs. Otherwise, you'll just be disappointed.
Yeah, and it helps accelerate your value as well, because most of the time when you're looking at an ROI on a tool, you're assuming that you've got experts to help you get to that level. And actually, if you're relying on Bob, who's been your ITSM expert for years, and he's now got to learn a new product that is big and heavyweight these days, they're not simple things, it's going to take him some serious time to get to be an expert. Whereas if you invest in a third party or vendor or MSP or whatever it is, chances are they've been working with this tool for years and years, and they can help you get there way faster than Bob can, and Bob can learn a load of stuff in the process. It's definitely good. Okay, number 4, focus on getting the data in and using the CMDB function. So this is one of my pet peeves, so please stop me if I get all excited and ramble on for ages, Matt. Most of the time when I talk to ITSM owners who are disillusioned with their tool, they're the people that are accessing that tool, and I'm talking about level 1, 2, 3 staff, which is typically where your user licensing is. That's the pricey bit. They are there doing the same things they've always done. Oh, hi, Mr. End User. Right, could you tell me the serial number of your machine, please? When did it break? Right, let me log on to one of our 32 different monitoring tools. Let me see if I can go back in time and try and work out what happened and do the same thing that I do every single day. Ping a device, do a trace through. What are the top 10 busiest running processes? Blah, 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 blah. If you are not looking to fix that problem of getting great data into your system so that your users, your level 1, 2, 3 users of that system can do their job adequately, then you are never going to get the most out of your ITSM tool. You've got to get great data in, and that great data has to be into the CMDB so that you know what CI is causing the problem and what service is affected, so you can put the right priority on it. You don't need a million war rooms, but you've also so much other data that you could put in there these days. Sorry, got a bit passionate there.
No, good. I think we can probably loop back. I know we've had our CMDB discussions before, and I'm sure there's more. Probably talk a bit more in that space. But other general data, whether you want to call it configuration or getting data in, but there's so many things, as I mentioned, like in the advert that you see, but it involves you putting stuff into the platform. You know, this cool ability to auto assign things to the right queue. Well, if you've not got the right foundation data in there and the company information and the team information, you're never going to get to that point. Whether you do things at a certain escalation point, if you're not getting your SLAs in there, service targets, you're never going to get to that point. Whether you're just doing general hardware asset management, right? Costing side of things, contract management, never going to get to that point. We always see in demos, service portal type stuff. But who's putting the request in there? Who focuses at the beginning of a project to put 1,000, exaggeration, a large amount of service requests into the portal, so there's something there for when the shoppers, the customers, turn up. It's always like an afterthought. So you get all these great service management platforms in place. It's like, right, we're going to do portal now. That's what we'll do. We'll do portal, and then we need, what request shall we do? Oh, okay, I'm not sure. Okay, and then it's another project, and it's another long, slow burning thing. That from an end user point of view, didn't we get a new thing in, a new product? Have you seen it? Crap. Versus getting all that stuff in there in the first case, the requests or whatever else, it's usable straight away. I think that's where you going down the route of the CMDB activity. There's so many things that are leveraged off the back of it, but if it's not in there, you can't do it. And normally, we know for sure, because we're in these conversations, it does feel like it's weekly at the moment, where people want to do the use case and they're actually finding they've got to go and kick off a CMDB project. And then it's like, CMDB, I knew we should have done it. Oh, blah, blah. Actually, if they would have just focused on a bit of pre-work of getting data in, and there's a number of ways to do that. It doesn't have to be a full-blown dead expensive discovery solution. There's loads of ways to get data in a sensible way, and at least then they can fulfill those use cases and live up to the advert of what the product's trying to offer. Yeah, and there's more on that topic. But yeah, the data aspects of it are like, one of the other ones, which I think is really great and missed. Most platforms will allow for it, not all in the right finesse type way, but just monitoring noise, whether that's in the way of an incident or an event or whatever applicable. I'm not precious, man. just if you've got some sort of noisy tool, whatever that looks like, focus on getting that content into your service management tool, because that seems like it's a burden as well. You get this product, you get another product, and then when there's a problem on the estate, raise it over here when you could have just kept these things. That's very flippant saying that. I know there's a bit more work depending on the product platform, but that is a great aspect, because we'll come into it on the last point. Getting that kind of data in there into here gives you a very good platform to work out what the hell is going on. But that's probably more on the last topic.
You are right, and that is a really nice segue into number
Almost
5.
on purpose. Almost on purpose.
Amazing, amazing. Almost like we're professionals. So this number 5 is use the data that your ITSM tool gives you. And what do we mean by that? Well, the first thing I always ask a customer for is, give me 6 months worth of incident data. I'll do some analysis on it, and it will find you some easy wins that you can make improvements on in your organization. And I am flabbergasted by how many people do not do this. The data is there. It takes me about half an hour to come up with, here's 5 things that would transform what you could do. And people in huge organizations with masses of people are not doing this. They're just using their service desk as a system of record for incident, change, and problem, typically. It's crazy. Don't know. What do you think?
Let me just take straight into that notion of organizations just using it to a system of record for incident, change, and problem. Even that would be okay if they then retrospectively looked at that. Like, how many incidents of this type? How many changes did they fail? Did they not? How many problems were resolved by this? Like just looking, you've got it already. Most likely, you don't need any fancy cool tool to analyze it. There are some cool ones. Just look and create some funky reports. Throw in Excel by all means if you need to. You shouldn't really need to, but look back to see what there is. It baffles me that loads of organizations, and I've been in it and I've done it myself, to be honest, like, don't look at the categorization of things enough. So we always want to make that user experience to raise something and to go through that process easier. And the way we do that is we don't let them have free choice. We don't give them free text fields all over the place, because they end up with a really rubbish data, crap in, crap out scenario. But if an organization looks periodically, maybe it's a weekly, monthly, whatever task, what's the categorization of things that people are using? What free text information are they saying? We keep seeing this, keep seeing this. Do you have a product, an operational category or a support category that you're raising it against? Because you begin to use that category activity, there's like a multiple win aspect there. We're giving the user, and that user could be a service agent, it could be the categorization in a request for an end user, whatever, it doesn't matter. You're giving them an easier way to raise something, which enables you to create templates and speed that process up. So the raising of things is made better by you putting the right filters and options in place. That's a win in itself. But then the other win is when we look to use the data, now we can work out, well, we've had a spike in this kind of categorization. Well, let's go and do something about it. Well, we know is this spike of this categorization resulted in this fix, which always had this kind of change associated to it. So we're always doing that change. Let's just do that change. But using categories in that ticketing, be it a crest or incident, is so valuable and so underused. It's essentially like a no cost, right? Just categorize things, because then it becomes so usable. But even if they don't have, even if they don't go down that route, there's always third-party products which are able to understand the data, like SoundCloud type territory, and do that kind of stuff. But product categories, ticket categories, underused valuable components.
Yeah, and there are many of them. I've got so many stories. It's absolutely unreal. But back to your point under number 4, the data has to be in there for you to do that. And when you go into organizations, I'm sure you do and I do, and then you go, okay, so how do you raise incidents? Oh, well, we've got all this data in monitoring, but it's not connected to our ITSM. It's just the team decide when they want to raise something, and they you've missed all of this data, and then you typically find those are the reactive ones, right? Not proactive. Actually, there were loads of warning events that told them something was going to go bang, but they never raised incidents out them. And I'm conscious we could talk about this forever and ever, I think. Maybe we need to do a whole podcast just on this one point. So lots of things.
I think could easily be done, couldn't it?
It definitely did. It could. So I did one on closure codes recently with a client, and oh my goodness, just that one analysis spawned just so much improvement. It was crazy. So right, wrapping up then, 5 mistakes people make with ITSM tools. Number 1, make sure that you focus on enablement for users, and that is not just training, that is involving all the right people in your decision-making process, so that they are happy with the tool that they get. Number 2, keep it simple. Focus on what you need. If yes, all ITSM tools can do almost everything. Cook your dinner for you these days. Do you really need that? Just buy what you need for now and focus on getting the basics right. Number 3, total cost of ownership. It is not just about the license cost of your tool, but the cost of the people that you need internally to run that tool, the people externally, upgrade costs, training costs, etc., etc. Build them into your budget. Otherwise, you won't get the value out. Number 4, focus on getting the right data into that tool, particularly into the CMDB, but also via monitoring tools, etc., so that you are not paying your people to do the same thing all day, every day, and guess what the priority is, and asking your users the same CI information all the time, which drives them up the wall. Number 5, the final one, is once you've got stuff in your ITSM tool, then use the data that your ITSM tool gives you to be able to make smart decisions and improvements. Really simple things like looking at the categories, looking at the closure code, seeing if there's any patterns you can start addressing and making improvements. I feel that was quite a fairly in-depth one, that. And both of us got very passionate about a couple of points there, Matt. I think we could probably do hours on this.
Easy, but I think as well, it's pretty important to mention that we've come at this from a fresh point of view. These are some recommendations. But realistically, whatever stage you're at, you might be able to pick, even if you went back through that process and use them as a check mark against where you currently are, it's still valid.
100% you could do that on with all of those points if on your existing tool, and you should do. Absolutely, because otherwise you'll start to get disillusioned if you're not already disillusioned with your tool, and you could just pick up some of these things and start to get way more value out of it by maybe training some of the people that are in there, or using that data to do some good stuff, or focusing on the quality of data that you're putting into your tool, which is probably your problem. So wonderful. Thank you very much, my friend. That was good as always. Yeah, go off. You can get into a t-shirt now that you've finished the being on the
podcast. For the summer, this is. Like I say, just change it down below. That's it.
Nice. All good. Wonderful. Thank you very much, everyone. Look forward to seeing you on the next episode. And as ever, if you've got any thoughts on this one, do drop them in the comments or message us, and we'd love to hear from you. So thanks very much.